The Feather Swirl technique utilises the Hanger Swirl, but does it in a slightly different way. So the Hanger Swirl works very nicely when you've got lots of colours going on in a soap and you use your hanger tool to create swirls through all of them. The Feather Swirl basically does that, but in a very controlled way. So rather than having a hodgepodge of colours and basically everything everywhere, we're going to be very specific in the way we lay down the colours and where we lay them down, and we're going to control a lot of the aspects of this more than just a standard hanger swirl. So one of the more important things of the feather hanger swirl or the feather swirl is you must control your trace, and the trace needs to be very light. So you need to have a light trace in order to do this one, and you're better off going lighter on the trace and waiting for things to set up rather than having a heavy trace and not being able to complete the swirl. So I've gone with this beautiful teal colour for this one, and this colour is actually a liquid soap colour. Now, there's some debate around liquid soap colours, whether they work or whether they don't work. For me personally, I've found that the liquid colours I use, as long as they are quality liquid colours, they will work very well. Now, this colour is from a fantastic company called Randall's Candles. There's a video on my channel doing an unboxing of some of their fragrances, and part of that unboxing, or part of that package they sent me, were these soap colours, and I've tested them, and you'll see the test of those in the fragrance oil testing video. So I'm using this now in an actual soap. Now you can see here that my trace is very, very thin, and actually when you come to see the final product, it was a little bit too thin, and I should have waited for it to actually thicken up a little bit more. So we've got a nice thin trace. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm using squeezy bottles to control the batter. And I'm placing the batter in the middle of the mould as much as I can do, and I'm creating some nice thin lines. Now, this was mistake number one that I made, and it's a good thing to think about when you're doing this. Wherever you place your soap is where your feather is going to either start or finish. Now, the bottom layers may well move out because you're putting soap on top of them, but ultimately they're going to stay very thin. So the bigger and wider you want your feathers, the bigger and wider you need to make these lines. So I've gone over with the first colour. Now what I'm going to do here is put the second colour over the top of it. I'm using a squeeze bottle because I can get very, very close to that layer of soap, and I'm shaking it side to side so that it's actually laying on top of that layer of soap, a layer of green or teal soap that I'm putting in, and not actually spreading it out. So you're going to get these layers upon layers of soap. Now the second learning I had in this particular soap is that these layers of white control how many layers of blue you're going to have, or how many layers of teal I was going to have. So I should have really built that up so you can see any more of the teal that you can see here. I didn't do that. I just carried on doing these nice thin layers, and you'll see the result a little bit later on. So all you do is you keep alternating between your main batter colour and your focus colour. So in this case, the focus colour is the teal, and the main batter colour is just the natural colour that I leave the soap. And my soap tends to go to a kind of very, very light, just off-white or maybe cream colour. So I'm going to follow this process and basically do exactly the same thing again and again and again. And I'll leave you to some music to see how long that takes in real time. And I'll come back once we put the hanger swirl through it.
See the light of a new day dawning. Feel the love from a beating heart. You catch a ride to the top of the world. This is where we start. No, we can't make it last forever. We gotta use all the time we have. And you know that we'll never say never if we ever get the chance. And it's good to be alive. It's good to be alive. This feeling's running high. Life is calling and the world is beautiful. Na 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 na. it's good to be alive. So good to be alive. This feeling's running high. Oh, life is calling and the world is beautiful. So beautiful. Life is calling, yeah, life is calling. Life is calling, the world is beautiful. 'Cause life is calling and the world is beautiful.
And here we go in with our final layer of the green. And what you'll find, again with these liquid soap colours, is that they will go an odd colour during processes like this. But once they've gone through saponification, they actually come back and they're nice and bright. And I've not found any problems with these ones with these specific colours, which are from Randall's Candles. So we're going to put our last layer of green in our accent colour, and then we're going to top that off with a layer of the plain batter colour. And you can see there I've got my Hanger Swirl tool. Technically this is a gear tie. This is a gear tie. They're available on Amazon. They come in a pack of 2, and they are probably about a quarter of the price of the other hanging tools on the market, Hanger Swirl tools on the market. So you are much better off going for these ones, and they're nice and thick. But if you wanted thinner ones, there are various other ways and means of doing that. One of the hanger tools I've used in the past, which are always very useful, is just bits of florist wire. They are not necessarily a multi-use tool, but you will find that for whether it's £12 or £15, I can't remember now, you get a huge reel of the wire, and it's perfectly suitable. So excuse the head in the way there, it'll be out, there we go, in a second. And I'm just going to actually give this a really nice top up of the base colour. Now, the trick with the Feather Swirl is you are going to go through as few times as you possibly can, and you need to remember where your soap is. So on this one, I'm going to go into the top, I'm going to pass through all the layers, hit the bottom, go to one side or the other, pull up, and then move it away from the soap. Ideally, I didn't do it then, but if you move it away from the soap, you're not going to drip anything on the top of your soap. So the other mod you can see here is basically the excess soap that I did not use for this one, but I needed some soap dough anyway. And to finish the top of this soap, I just wanted to create a kind of feather really on the top. So I'm using that green again, I'm being very careful, very gentle, and I'm easing off the pressure as I move towards the top of the feather there. And all I'm going to do is make sure there's enough colour laid down, and this little tool here is a little needle tool, pin tool, and I'm just going to make a feather shape by flicking this colour across the top. Now you do have to be quite careful here that you are not going too deep into the soap and therefore ruining the pattern that you've got going through the soap, and also you're not kind of going too deep and making this sink into the soap at the top, so it looks like it's got a little bit of a dodgy hat or a top, or there's a pattern at the top that doesn't look quite right. So just be very gentle with this one, and then play around with it until you get a nice looking feather on the top. So the idea is you're pulling the colour outwards, but kind of like at a bit of a 45-degree angle, and it does take a few swipes to get this absolutely spot on. And what I find is that this little hook has got, the little needle tool has a hook on the end, and it's just picking up some of the fabric off of my cloths that I use to wipe up with. They're very green, so any old shirts, old sweatshirts, anything that I'm not wearing that I can possibly use to wipe down surfaces I use. It means I'm not quite using up all of my paper towel. I use the paper towel when it's absolutely necessary, and reusable washable cloths when I can. So you can see here, I'm just pulling out that colour and being quite vigorous with it, but the faster you move, the more kind of swirly the ends become. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same tool and then pass it up around the outside of this shape to move all of those kind of up in a pattern of a feather. So you'll see in a minute what I'll do is, once I'm happy with the kind of overall shape, I'll then swipe across the top of the soap. Obviously I need a bit more colour in here, just to get a little bit more weight in the bottom of the feather to give it that kind of teardrop shape moving upwards, and pull a little bit more of that colour out into the soap. So we're always kind of moving the soap from the middle outwards, which means we get a nice feathery end to it. And then you can see there just coming out, it's now starting to look a little bit more kind of like a feather on the top of the soap. You can leave it there if you like, or you can do this next step. It's a typical artist thing, it's a typical soaper thing, you don't quite know when to stop. So this is the movement I'm going to show you now. I'm moving that soap, and can you see how it's just taking the ends with it? And that's where you can create a really nice shape by just moving the soap and working with the soap batter to create shapes like that. So we're a couple of days later and we're moving on to the cut of this soap. Now, this is my soap cutter. It doesn't have a name yet, and I think we should name it. So if anyone has any suggestions of what we should name my multi-bar soap cutter, look how dirty that is. I do clean it off, obviously, but I've been working and doing a load of stuff with it, so excuse the little bits of stickiness on there. But what should we call the soap cutter? Anyway, moving on to the Feather Swirl, you can see here I've just added a few more little bits and pieces, and they're just little heart shapes, and it's come out quite nicely. The little white across the top, don't worry, that's not soda ash, that's actually a little bit of extra soap that I lightened with some titanium dioxide and then put a second kind of swirl across the top. Again, us soapers don't know when to say stop. So the nice thing here is you can see how that has hit the bottom, where it's hit the bottom, and we're going to cut this open and see what sort of feather we get inside. Now remember I said that I wasn't quite happy with the width that I'd used for the Feather Swirl, and I'd kind of made it all too close and this, that and the other. You're about to see the result of that. So this was a really good learning experience for me, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and your first or second Feather Swirl will be better than this one. So here we go. I'm going to pull one out from the middle, and there we go. There's the Feather Swirl. But can you see how it's all very, very kind of closely grouped together, and it's a little bit kind of, it's not really a feather in the truest sense, but it's still a really nice pattern in the middle of the soap. So I'm not unhappy with it, but I'd have liked a little bit more kind of there. We got that one on the back there was beautiful. So that's how you're going to make a Feather Swirl in a soap, and I'm just going to move that over to the side there, and we'll have a look at the soaps in all their glory. And there we have it, folks, the Feather Swirl. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified when new videos are uploaded. Thanks a lot, soapsters, and we'll see you again next time.